Hello! Jamie Spears has agreed to step down as the conservator of Britney's estate. So today I'm going to talk about that, and the next video will be the one that is about Britney's interview that she did with Diane Sawyer and what that says about Britney. So why has Jamie agreed to this? He knew his daughter didn't want him in charge for a very long time. So why is he suddenly listening now? Two of Britney's doctors, as well as her other conservator, Jodie Montgomery, agree that she would be better off without Jamie involved in her conservatorship. So I think that Jamie would have lost the court case. The public have also seen how much of his daughter's money he's taken. Now that Britney has her own lawyer and the support of the public, I think Jamie realises he can't gaslight her anymore. I've talked in the last few videos about the way Jamie Spears has behaved and the impact this might have had on his daughter. I think he has some narcissistic traits, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, although it would surprise me that he had actually gone to see a psychologist to be assessed for this, because he tends to lay the blame on everybody but himself. I've talked before about how narcissists like to win. A narcissist can't lose, and that's because they rely on their egos heavily. A narcissist's identity is completely dependent on what other people think of them. There's nothing inside them that tells them, you know what, you're okay. Even if people think you're not, you still are. You know, that's just not a possibility. And when I say okay, I mean you're not worthless, you know, because they don't mind if people think they're bad people, or many of them don't. Not all of them, I should say, because some of them depend on being seen as good people. But many of them don't mind being seen as a bad person, but they do need to be seen as somebody who's powerful. For people who have a developed sense of self-esteem, for people who grew up with some degree of nurturing, you know, with some degree of validation, where they recognise that their thoughts and feelings do matter, life is very different. If people think badly of them, it's not the end of the world. We all like to fit in to some degree, you know, we're wired that way. When we lived in tribes, it was very dangerous not to be accepted into that group because we could risk starving to death. So it is natural to feel really uncomfortable about being excluded, about people thinking less of you. But that's a different thing from really it being the end of the world, you know, feeling like you're worthless if people don't think that you're great or powerful. So when you're completely dependent on your ego, on what people think of you, and you lack a significant amount of empathy, you will win at any cost. And I think what Jamie Spears has discovered is that he was unlikely to win. And how embarrassing would that be? Well, not just embarrassing, but absolutely devastating. So by saying he'll step aside, he doesn't have to lose. He doesn't have to experience the utter devastation of having everybody think of him as somebody powerless. So what he's done is he's said he's going to do this for the benefit of Britney Spears, because it's not in her interest to be fighting this battle in court. That's what he's said through his lawyer. His lawyer has also said that he's been the unremitting target of unjustified attacks, and I think a lot of those have been online. So a lot of people have been ripping him to shreds and saying what an awful person he is for treating his daughter like this. He's done the typical narcissist move of trying to change the public's view of him from perpetrator to victim. Narcissists don't only do this to manipulate people, they also think they're the victim because they didn't get what they feel entitled to. In this case, I think control of Britney, money, and the world's respect. He's looking like he's made a choice for the sake of Britney Spears and to end this really unfair campaign against him. This was really the only way he had available to him to behave as if he was in full control of this situation. And so because of that, I find it pretty meaningless what he's saying. Britney Spears had accused him of conservatorship abuse, and she said she wanted to sue him. So he's also called for her flawed, as he calls it, petition to be denied, saying it was unjustified and that there were no urgent circumstances justifying his immediate suspension. That's what his lawyer has said on his behalf. Another reason as to why Jamie has agreed to step down, I think, other than being seen as being in control, is that he might actually have a bit more control this way, because it gives him some room to throw some conditions in. And that's exactly what he's done. His lawyer filed court papers on Thursday, and in them she said he would be in a position to step aside when certain matters were resolved and when the time is right. There's no mention of what those certain matters are. So there's a lot of vagueness there. When the time is right, what does that mean? Does that mean in a couple of weeks, or does it mean in a couple of years, or does it mean in 10 years? You know, it really could mean anything. I think that maybe his lawyer is thinking that it's going to be tempting for the judge to go with his voluntary resignation from his role, because that way no more thinking needs to be done on the matter. If Britney does try to take legal action against her father for conservatorship abuse, that's presumably going to take some time, you know, in court, because there'll need to be a lot of evidence gathered together and so on. And his lawyer has said there were no grounds for him to step aside. She's also said there were no urgent circumstances justifying Mr. Spears' immediate suspension. And so what the lawyer's doing is saying that there's no reason why he should step aside, and yet he's voluntarily going to do this. In response, Britney's lawyer has said, "We look forward to continuing our vigorous investigation into the conduct of Mr. Spears and others over the past 13 years, while he reaped millions of dollars from his daughter's estate. And I look forward to taking Mr. Spears' sworn deposition in the near future. In the interim, rather than making false accusations and taking cheap shots at his own daughter, Mr. Spears should remain silent and step aside immediately." The court papers say that Mr. Spears intends to work with the court and his daughter's new attorney to prepare for an orderly transition to a new conservator. So that sounds like he's just very organised, and he's kindly helping out Britney and her lawyer by, by going through this process in the most careful way. What are these certain matters that need to be resolved? Does he want more money from Britney? Is he going to say to her that he will only step aside if she doesn't try to sue him? Previously, he used to manage both her finances and her personal life, and he stepped aside from doing that and just controlled her finances. And it's thought that the reason why was because at that time there was a restraining order against him after he had broken a door down and shaken one of Britney's children. So it would make sense that the reason why he had stepped aside then was because otherwise he risked being taken off the conservatorship altogether. And I think in this situation, there will have been a carefully thought out plan that somehow would have been in his favour. He's done it with her children. He's said that if she is a good girl, and she does as she's told and stays quiet, then she'll get to see her kids more. And he's been doing this for more than a decade. In the early days of the conservatorship, he was saying that he would see where they were in a year's time. So it was always supposed to be a temporary arrangement. And Britney was always thinking that it wouldn't last forever. She should just do as her dad said and then everything would be okay. And he took full advantage of that. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if this is his plan to get what he wants, to get this on his terms so that he makes the maximum profit out of this situation, whether this is financially or emotionally. So I'm going to leave it here. It's got completely dark now, and I'll see you in the next video. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. You can see the little elephant is sitting there patiently. I'd say actually his patience is beginning to wear thin now. He looks a little bit fed up, and one of my clients noticed him the other day and asked about him. and I felt really bad that he's still nameless. I said we'd name him ages ago, and he's just been sat there patiently, video after video, waiting for his turn, just waiting to have a name. He has been sitting patiently next to me on the sofa. There he is, he's sitting there patiently next to me. He's been there the whole video long. Dinner time! Aren't you hungry? We have to name this poor little elephant. So let's name him today. I've put up a post on Instagram with all the names that I could squeeze onto it that people have suggested. So I'll look forward to seeing you on Instagram voting for a name.